Hi. Yeah, so regular this now is, apparently, the second time. It's still new enough that if it's rubbish, though, it's still not my fault. I've got like 4 or 5 of them before it becomes my fault when it's rubbish. What's going on? I now see that this is slightly awkward, and I'll try to read the writing from here and not bend down, otherwise I'll look stupid. So first of all, in Meteor News terms, let's say you were organising a meetup in another city and wanted to know where to garner all the news I've just copied down hurriedly this afternoon from. These are the places. Meteor.js Twitter handle, the Meteor blog on the Meteor website, This Week in Meteor, which is a really, really good weekly newsletter, which is written by Rishi Gumar from Differential. And that's probably the best place of all. Crater.io is like the hacker news for Meteor. The Meteor official forums, there's loads and loads of volume on there, so there's quite a lot to read through, but all the interesting stuff gets mentioned. And the final thing, which looks like a slightly unwieldy URL, is just the HistoryMD file on the Meteor repo on GitHub, where you can read about what's just been added in the new release and what's coming in the next release, and it's always worth kind of keeping up to date with if you're really interested in kind of cutting-edge Meteor. So I can see one gentleman taking a photo. He seems to be done now, so we'll move on. MDG, so what's happening in Core Meteor? We're now up to version 1.1.0.2. The key thing since last month, or the last meetup, is we're at 1.1.0. That was the Windows support release. I'm totally at a loss to describe how wonderful it is, because I don't use Windows. But we can all share the benefit, because obviously this means a broader community, more people can use Meteor, more people can sell Meteor to their bosses as a good development solution. All the kind of tooling is gradually being, well, has already effectively been updated to support Windows. So Discover Meteor is now updated for Windows, Meteor Up, Velocity, everything really supports Windows. It is a broad church now, and some of the kind of anecdotal evidence is that there are actually loads and loads of people using Meteor on Windows anyway. So that's great, but I will kind of gloss over it because I've never used it myself. In the pipeline, so this is, if you look at the dev branch on the Meteor repo, this is the sort of stuff that's coming. These are quite minor things at the moment, but maybe of interest to projects that you're building at the moment. Handlebars sub-expressions. Handlebars, sorry, it should be spacebars. Excuse me, that should say spacebars, which is the templating language that Meteor uses. And sub-expressions effectively means that you can put a bit more logic in your templates, exactly like you're not supposed to do. But the reality is that, in actual fact, there are all sorts of template helpers you end up writing which don't really do anything. They're just kind of rehashing if you're using Blaze, rehashing spacebars rather, rehashing kind of existing logic, and it will obviate some of that need. So this is good news. The ability to send attachments through Meteor's own email package is obviously very useful if that's something you want to do. You obviously can do it through other like NPM packages, but using the official Meteor package will be nice and easy. And there's some new methods for reactive dict and tracker, which are things that Meteor, people who are familiar with Meteor will be very familiar with. Just to make, for example, reactive dict is going to have all and clear methods, so you can get rid of everything in the dictionary, or you can just get everything that's in the dictionary out of the JSON object nice and easy, and it will just save you writing some boilerplate code yourself if that's the sort of thing you want to do. So that's just in the pipeline. Elsewhere from MDG, the past couple of days there's been some really interesting output. There was an AMA on Crater with Sashko. A lot of the questions, this is like, I'd encourage you to read it. At the time it's quite difficult to follow, but actually reading through it afterwards is really easy. So I'd encourage you to go on Crater and look through it if you're interested in it. A lot of the questions were about packages actually, and that seems to be a real focus for the Meteor community and the kind of MDG support for packages. So there were a variety of questions on what packages does MDG officially support. You know, one example being Velocity as a testing framework, which is kind of community built but has their explicit blessing. Is the same going to apply to stuff like routers, so Iron Router or Flow Router or Simple Schema, the sort of things that lots of the frameworks have as part of core, and really in many cases you can't build a web app without. And he seemed to suggest that there will at some stage be some kind of official blessing and maybe support for those packages, so that the people that, if you end up writing a really useful package, you don't spend all your time answering issues, which if you're not kind of getting paid for it is probably quite annoying. Also, the issue of paid packages came up. I don't know whether any of you are aware, but there is the first paid package for Meteor in Meteor Toys. I haven't paid for it, so I can't tell you what it's like. But there were some opinions offered on whether that's a useful development, and obviously there are two schools of thought. It does allow the kind of professional grade packages to be built and maintained, and I think the thinking is just as long as that's not core stuff that you need simply to build a web app, then potentially that's fine. The other thing that came out of it is that as much as there's loads of stuff that's in the pipeline, it seems that server-side rendering and lazy loading are two things that MDG is not focused on at all at the moment. And so Sashko even said that if like load speed is critical to your app, that Meteor might not be the best choice for it. So that's again something interesting to bear in mind. And then also yesterday we had a Meteor hack show with Justin from the Galaxy team. I've watched it like semi-fast forward this afternoon, so this is like as much as I could garner from it. But again, I would fully encourage you to watch the whole thing. It's fascinating. There's lots and lots of detail about Docker. And essentially, Galaxy is going to run Docker containers via Kubernetes. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong, which is Google's kind of cluster management tool that they've open sourced. And it's all going to run on AWS. And initially, it's all going to run in the US, it sounds. So if all your customers are in the UK or Europe, that's maybe not ideal, but there we are. But the good news is it sounds like it's just going to work, and effectively it's going to be like Galaxy, like Meteor deployed, but with scaling, with kind of guaranteed isolation, fault tolerance, and a really nice UI. So as a solution, it sounds absolutely brilliant. And given the fact that all these aims and lots more were discussed in the Meteor Hack show, it's clear that there are kind of significant strides being made. There was no date given, obviously, but this is really something quite exciting to look forward to as a deployment solution. But Meteor deploy, the free tier is always going to remain. That was also made clear. So you're always going to be able to deploy stuff to play with it through Meteor's own servers. So what else do we have? Interesting packages. This is in no particular order, but stuff that you could potentially want to look at. I say it's in no particular order, but the two simple ones are at the end for a reason, so it is. Anyway. So the top one, template animations, this is something that uses UI hooks, which is a kind of, well, it's not in the official docs. It's a feature of Blaze, which when live data is causing, or well, when reactivity is causing the DOM to update, allows you to manipulate the nodes which are being added, removed, or changed. And it's kind of usable, and people have done some really nice stuff with it. This looks like a really nice package. I've not used it, but for vanilla use cases, to make it really, really quite straightforward to say, okay, I want to add some UI animations when my list updates with a new item or something disappears. So that could be well worth a look. There's a really interesting new spiderable package which uses server-side rendering effectively to deliver the web page to a spider. It does seem that you have to be very careful in the way that you write your app to not do kind of DOM-specific stuff. But if you were prepared to write your app in such a way, it's going to be kind of a super fast and robust solution all on the server. So that's, again, I just think a very interesting experiment, even if you don't end up using it, and it's something worth checking out. Then there's something called Blaze Components, which seems like a really well thought out way to build your own components, which I think people kind of end up doing anyway when they build a Meteor app, but with like more thought put into how to encapsulate them from a JavaScript perspective in like an MVC style framework. Check that out if you think you're going to build a huge app and there's like components that you're going to reuse throughout your app. And then the two bottom ones are very interesting because simple is a namespace which is going to be used by Sashko and Slava from the MDG. And so, I mean, I don't know whether these are like pseudo-official packages, but the fact that you've got core developers that are releasing them kind of suggests that, they're going to be well written. The first one is a package to build, to make it really simple to build like REST endpoints in your Meteor app. and the second one is a kind of plugin to replace Mongo with RethinkDB. Both of which kind of, if you want to explore, like if you have a use case for them, I think will be really interesting to explore. And what will be equally interesting is to see kind of how well supported they are, whether this is just like the core developers play thing, or whether it's something that is kind of gradually going to get like supported in the same way as core. So that's stuff worth looking at. Testing. So the Velocity core team, which Velocity is Meteor's testing framework, and the core team that are responsible for building that have kind of joined together as a commercial organisation, which are also, from an open source perspective, supporting Velocity. And I think for Velocity, this has got to be good news, because if those guys are working together all the time, then the combined support is going to be better for Velocity, which itself has hit version 0.6.3. And I think the most important recent developments were, well, Windows support, and there was something else that I can't remember, so I'll ignore it. And Cucumber support as well has been further developed and has hit version 0.7. This is, frankly, really ambitious but very exciting package, which has all sorts of components to it for like end-to-end testing for Meteor apps, and given that several of those components, to me, seem kind of difficult enough to use on their own, if it works well, then it's going to be brilliant, and it's going to save people loads of time. So yeah, if you're interested in end-to-end testing Meteor apps, then Cucumber is well worth checking out. Meteor London, this is the final thing. So I don't know why I'm telling you this. It's not news because you're here, but we have a new venue, which is here. So thank you, Rainmaking Loft. It is a bigger space. That's to reflect the fact that there are more people in the meetup group, which is brilliant. But despite the fact there are loads of people in the meetup group, it seems like the first 3 people to speak this evening are organisers of the meetup. And so we definitely want to encourage people. I kind of, like, we've had some really good talks recently from people who, like Mark Woodbridge's talk on Chaser, and Michael Carlin and Liam Wooding did really good talks, actually all in the same month, that kind of demonstrated like a really deep understanding and like a long development process of what they were talking about. And that's brilliant. And if you've got like a fully featured production grade app built in Meteor you want to talk about, we would love to hear about it. And that's great. But this all started before I was coming to these meetups as like show and tell, like,
oh, you were even born, lad.
Come on. So you've kind of built something that like kind of works and is nearly done and might look a bit ugly, but does some stuff and it's worth talking about. And that is what's interesting, because people will discuss it with you. And just to give an embarrassing personal anecdote, I did a presentation at actually on Meteor Day of an app which ran on mobile, and we didn't have the AV to kind of connect it up to the AV. So I had to kind of describe what was happening, and even then, what was supposed to happen, the one thing it was supposed to do, didn't work at all. So it was like that's the benchmark to beat, which is very easy. And what didn't happen afterwards was people came up to me and said, that was a terrible talk, you shouldn't have done it. Nobody did that. What did happen is 3 people came up and said, that's a really interesting idea, it's a shame it didn't work, and we had a conversation about it. Like there is seriously no downside. If you've got something that's an interesting idea, or that you've just really struggled with and you want to talk about why you've struggled, like this is a great opportunity to do so, and 5 minutes is not a long time and you'll eat it up. So please give lightning talks on any subject, Meteor related ideally, that you have been interesting to you, because if they're interesting to you, they'll be interesting to other people. And I think that is it. So yeah, that was the news. Check all those places that are listed. Thank you.